Before we begin this night prayer, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and like this video. I can hear the noise even now, long after the lights are off, long after the words have stopped. My body is still, but my thoughts are pacing. They wander, they rewind, they interrupt, and I am tired of being interrupted, tired of trying to sleep while 100 versions of the day replay themselves like broken film. I didn't ask for this replay, but my mind keeps pressing play again and again and again, and I can't seem to find the stop button, let alone the silence. So instead of fighting it tonight, I bring it to you, not the tidy version, not the shortened summary, the whole wild, unfinished, tangled mess of it. I'm not looking for you to organize it. I just need to know that you're closer than the chaos, that you don't stay at the edges of my life, waiting for peace to invite you in, but that you walk straight into the war zone of my thoughts and sit with me in it. Because the thoughts don't scare you. The noise doesn't threaten you. The what-ifs and regrets and unsaid words and invisible fears, they don't confuse you. They don't drive you away. So if they're going to be here tonight, then I need you to be closer than them, closer than their volume, closer than their grip, closer than their speed. I don't know how to calm this down by myself. I've tried breathing slowly, and it helps for a moment, but then another memory rises, another worry slips in, another possibility tightens my chest, and so I exhale again. But this time, I'm not exhaling into a void. I'm exhaling into your presence, into the arms of a God who doesn't need me to be okay, to be present, a God who does not pace when I do, a God who does not match my panic, but leans into it with steady grace. So I welcome you, not into the parts of my mind I've managed to clean up, but into the messy middle where I need you most. I need you in the looped conversations I keep having in my head. I need you in the imagined arguments. I need you in the quiet terror that I said the wrong thing today, or didn't do enough, or missed what mattered. I need you in the places I can't go back and change. I need you in the places I can't see forward from here. I need you in the ache that doesn't even have a name, the one that just shows up at night like a bruise I don't remember getting. I don't want to just fall asleep from exhaustion. I want to fall asleep in your nearness. I want you to be the final voice in this room. Even if that voice doesn't say much, just be near enough that I know the other voices aren't the strongest ones here. Just be near enough that I know you hear me, even when I stop speaking. Because the noise in my mind doesn't need more thoughts. It needs something holy enough to still it, and you are that holy thing. Not distant, not decorative, but steady, present, low enough to meet me where I am, and strong enough not to be pulled under. I used to think I had to wait until the chaos passed before I could come close to you. But now I'm starting to believe that it's the chaos that pulls me toward you, that the noise itself is a reminder I'm not made to carry all of this alone. That maybe the interruption isn't my enemy. Maybe it's the signal that it's time to reach again, not up, but inward, into the deep place where you already dwell. Because if you are closer than my thoughts, then you're not far off right now. Then you're not waiting for me to pray perfectly, or think clearly, or solve anything before you settle beside me. Maybe you're already here. Maybe you've been whispering through the noise all along, waiting for me to hear beneath the panic, to hear the warmth in your nearness, to hear the peace that doesn't need to make everything else disappear, a peace that can hold me even in the presence of what I don't understand, a nearness that doesn't demand silence, only surrender. So I give you what I can, which tonight is not clarity, not eloquence, just a tired mind and a soft yes. I say yes to you being closer than the ache, yes to you being closer than the questions, closer than the spinning and the spiraling and the trying to make it all make sense, closer than every unfinished sentence and unresolved loop, closer than fear, closer than fatigue, closer than the stories my anxiety keeps trying to tell me. If I can't outrun them, let me be held within them, held not by control, but by closeness, held by a love that doesn't leave me when I can't calm down, held by a shepherd who walks through the valley of shadows, not around them, held by the one who knew this mind of mine before I did, and still calls it worth loving. Stay close, God, closer than the words I'm thinking, closer than the emotions I don't yet know how to name, closer than the parts of me I keep trying to fix, closer than the pressure to perform, closer than the fear of being too much or not enough, closer than the past I can't change, and the future I can't predict. Be the stillness within the storm. Be the center beneath the spin. Be the heartbeat that keeps beating when mine is racing. Be the hush that doesn't come from giving up but from finally resting in something stronger, someone steadier. You. I don't know how to untangle every thread in my mind tonight, but I know who I want sitting beside me while I sleep. I know what nearness I trust more than my understanding, so I will let this night come, not because I've solved the noise, but because I've invited you into it, and you are not afraid of where I've brought you. You are not afraid of this noise. You are not afraid of this mind. You are not afraid of this night, and neither do I need to be. Not anymore, not with you this close. Tonight, the room feels heavy, even though the air is still. It's not the walls or the darkness pressing in on me. It's my own mind, the way it circles and circles like a bird that's forgotten how to land. Every sound outside my window seems to echo inside my head. Every unfinished task of the day sits in the corner, waiting to be judged. I can feel the weight of things I didn't do, things I couldn't fix, things I don't even have names for. My thoughts have become a crowd, and I'm standing in the middle of it, trying not to get swept away. And in the middle of this crowd I keep reaching for you, hoping you're not just somewhere at the edge, but right here in the center, steady enough to keep me from being pulled under. I don't need a lecture from you. I don't need an explanation of why my mind is this loud. I just need the warmth of your nearness like a hand on the back of my neck, something to tell my nervous system it can stop bracing for impact. Something to tell my heart it's not failing just because it's tired. Something to tell me that even if nothing changes tonight, I am not alone in this room. I remember nights when I thought I had to tidy up my inner world before inviting you in. I tried to clear away every doubt, to file my fears into neat little drawers before I prayed. But these drawers don't stay shut. They spill open as soon as I lie down. And now I'm learning that you never ask for a clean entryway. You just ask for an honest one. So here it is, the anxiety that feels like static in my chest, the guilt that keeps circling back, the craving for control that I can't satisfy, the flash of hope I keep trying to protect. I place them all on the floor of this room, not as an offering, but as a confession of reality. And then I ask you to step closer, not as a guest, but as a friend who isn't afraid to walk barefoot through my mess. I ask you to be the breath under my breathing, the ground beneath my restless pacing. I ask you to be what holds me while I'm too tired to hold myself. I don't expect silence to come like a switch being flipped. I know my brain is still going to wander, but if you're closer than my thoughts, then even when they wander, they're wandering inside your presence. Even when they scatter, they're scattering inside a wider mercy. Even when I lose my way, I'm not lost outside of you. That is the only thing that has ever truly quieted me, the realization that my noise is not bigger than your nearness, that my spirals don't scare you, that you are not pacing at the door, hoping I'll finally calm down, but you're already sitting at the foot of my bed, already leaning against the wall where my shadow falls, already waiting with a patience that doesn't run out. So I slow my breathing again, not as a trick, but as a way of opening a window to you. I picture my thoughts like leaves on a stream, and I picture you as the water that carries them. They don't stop existing, but they stop strangling me. They start moving, and I'm able to watch instead of drown. I hear my own heart beating, and under it another rhythm, older, steadier, deeper, yours. It doesn't ask me to speed up or slow down. It just welcomes me to lean into it. And for a moment, the crowd of my mind feels less like a mob and more like a field of birds lifting all at once. It's still movement, but it's beautiful now. It's still noise, but it's not against me. It's stay here, God, not as an idea, but as weight and warmth, as the one who understands what my mind can't name, as the one who can sit inside the ache without needing to explain it, as the one who is closer than the labels I give myself, closer than the fears about tomorrow, closer than the shame of yesterday. Stay until my muscles remember they're safe enough to loosen. Stay until my jaw unclenches and my shoulders drop. Stay until the night feels less like a trial and more like a place of meeting. And if the noise keeps humming, let your presence hum deeper. Let it become the low note under everything else, the one my soul can rest on. I don't need a perfect prayer tonight, just this one. Be here. Be nearer than my thoughts, nearer than my breathing, nearer than the ache. And while I drift in and out of sleep, let that nearness be the story written into me. Let me wake tomorrow, not necessarily with every problem solved, but with the memory of being held in the dark, with the quiet knowledge that the crowd of my mind does not get the last word. You do, and your word tonight is not command or criticism, it's presence. And that presence is enough. This night stretches long and soft, like a sheet pulled over me, but underneath the stillness, my inner world is restless. I can feel each thought as if it were a drop of rain tapping on the inside of my skull. Some cold, some warm, some so heavy, they break into smaller thoughts and keep sliding down. They don't come in a line. They come in regrets sit next to hopes, worries link arms with fragments of conversations, half-remembered memories walk through the same corridors as brand new fears. It's as if my mind is a house with every door open and every guest arriving at once. I've tried to be the host who manages it all, but I'm running out of room. Tonight I don't want to host anymore. I want to hand the keys to you, not because I think you'll throw the guests out, but because you know how to walk among them without losing yourself, and somehow your walking steadies me. You know which voices are echoes and which are true, which shadows are only shadows, and which are signals that something deeper is calling. You don't flinch at the noise. You don't shame me for it. You simply come closer until closeness becomes more real than confusion. I've heard people say that the way to peace is to empty the mind. I've tried that, and for a few seconds it feels like silence until another thought pushes through like a weed through concrete. But what I'm learning tonight is that emptiness isn't the answer. Presence is. Not a void, but a someone. Not a blank space, but a love that fills even the gaps I can't fill myself. If you are closer than my thoughts, then peace is not the absence of thinking. It's the awareness of being held while thinking. It's the strange courage that rises when I realize I don't have to master this storm to survive it. I just have to stop standing alone. So here in this bed with my hands unclenched on the blanket, I open the inner door again. Come through the noise, God. Come not as an intruder, but as the heartbeat beneath every echo. Be my companion in the hallways of my own mind. Be the quiet friend who knows where every room is and still chooses to stay. There are voices tonight that tell me I'm too much, too messy, too tired, too inconsistent to be worthy of nearness. Those voices are loud, but they're not you. You don't come to audit my worth. You come to share my weight. You don't bring a list of conditions. You bring a table and sit with me at it. Even here, where my faith feels like a flickering candle and my focus keeps breaking, you remain. Your nearness doesn't depend on my steadiness. It's the other way round. My steadiness grows inside your nearness. Like a child whose breathing slows when a parent's hand rests gently on their back, I feel the possibility that my own racing heart could match your calmer rhythm. I feel the invitation to let the noise keep moving past me without trying to hold every piece. I feel the small but certain shift from being overwhelmed to being accompanied, and that shift is everything. So, tonight, instead of trying to stop the thoughts, I let them float by and I listen beneath them. I listen for the low hum of your presence, the one that's been here longer than my worries. I listen for the warmth that doesn't scold but steadies. I let your closeness become the room, the floor, the ceiling, so that no thought can find a corner where you are not. And when a sharp memory stings, I imagine it landing not on bare skin but on your open palm. When a fear rises like a wave, I imagine it breaking not over my head but over your shoulder. When a longing aches, I imagine it already known, already seen, already carried. This is not a trick. It's a truth my body has forgotten, but my soul remembers. You are not outside my chaos looking in. You are within it, larger, calmer, deeper. Stay near as the night deepens. Stay near as my breathing evens out. Stay near until the noise begins to sound less like accusation and more like rain on a roof. Still there, but no longer dangerous. And if I wake in the small hours and the crowd of thoughts has returned, let me feel again the weight of your nearness before I reach for my phone or my fear. Let me remember that closeness is not something I have to manufacture. It's already here, waiting for my noticing. It's the shelter inside the storm, the anchor beneath the current, the steady ground under my moving feet. Let it be the last thing I sense before sleep and the first thing I know when my eyes open. This is my prayer tonight, not for a perfect mind, but for a present God. Not for the noise to vanish, but for the nearness to stay stronger than it. Not for control, but for closeness. And even as the words fade, let the reality remain that you are already closer than my thoughts, and that is enough to carry me through the night. The darkness in the room has changed. It's no longer the same black weight that sat on my chest when I first lay down. It has softened, taken on a texture that feels almost like a blanket, and I realize it isn't the darkness that changed. It's me. Something in me has begun to exhale. My jaw isn't clenched. My fingers aren't digging into the sheets. The noise hasn't vanished, but it's become less like a crowd and more like a distant river. And in the middle of that river, I can sense you, not as an idea, but as a presence that bends the current. All the little eddies of my thinking swirl toward you and then keep moving, instead of circling endlessly inside me. It's a subtle shift, but it's what I needed most. Not a command to stop thinking, but the discovery that my thoughts can exist inside your nearness without swallowing me. There's something holy about this kind of quiet, not the brittle silence of forcing myself to be calm, but the living quiet that comes when another heartbeat is close enough to hear. It's like lying under a sky full of clouds and realizing there's still a moon behind them. You can't see it, but you can feel its pull. That's how your closeness feels tonight. It isn't erasing my mind, it's giving it a horizon. It isn't asking me to shut down, it's giving me a place to land. I notice my breath slow again, not as a technique, but as a response. Like a child in a car who finally drifts off because someone safe is driving. That's what you are doing with my thoughts. Not scolding them, not yanking them out, but holding the wheel steady until I remember I'm not in danger. I think about the way you move through crowded places when you walk this earth. The noise of the marketplace, the demands of people pressing in, the questions of those who doubted you. You didn't hurry. You didn't tense up. You were present to the one in front of you. You carried stillness inside yourself. And I imagine you carrying that stillness into my mind now, into every frantic room of it. If I picture my thoughts as a house, you're sitting in the kitchen at the center, waiting with the light on. The doors can slam, the windows can rattle, but that light doesn't flicker, and the more I notice it, the more the noise loses its power. So I lean into this awareness. I tell myself slowly, the thoughts are not the truth, they're only visitors. The fears are not prophecies, they're only weather. The regrets are not life sentences, they're only echoes. And you are not a visitor, you are not weather, you are not an echo. You are the steady presence in which all these things appear and disappear. You are the floor beneath the pacing. You are the weight in the chair at the end of the bed. You are the one constant when my inner world feels like a kaleidoscope. And the more I let that truth seep into me, the softer my body becomes. My shoulders slide down from my ears. My eyes grow heavy. I don't ask you to take away every thought tonight. I ask you to stay nearer than them, to be the pulse underneath their chatter, to be the low note under the high, the bedrock under the waves. And as I feel sleep drawing close, I want to fall into it not as an escape, but as a surrender into arms that have been here all along, even when my mind was sure it was alone, into a love that doesn't tire of my loops, into a presence that doesn't shrink back from my mess. Stay here, God, as night deepens. Stay so close that even in dreams, my heart knows it's held. Stay so close that when I wake, whether in 2 hours or at dawn, I don't have to reach for reassurance because it's already around me. Let this closeness be more than an idea. Let it be felt, breathed, known. Let it become the quiet weight that steadies me, the soft gravity that draws my restless thoughts into orbit, the slow music that plays under everything else. Let your nearness be the last thing I sense as I drift off and the first thing I remember when the morning comes. This is how I want to end this day, not with every question answered, but with my soul resting in the fact that you are here, closer than my thoughts, closer than my fears, closer than the stories that try to define me. Here, in this room, in this night, in this breath, closer than everything else. The room is the same, but it feels almost like a sanctuary now. The night hasn't changed its shape. It is still long, still dark, still full of hours before dawn. But inside me there is a widening, as if the walls of my inner room have shifted outward and allowed more space for breath. The noise is still here. Yes, stray worries moving like small animals at the edge of the field, but they are not in the center anymore. In the center there is a calm weight, a steady warmth, and I know it isn't me. It's the unforced closeness of a presence that doesn't demand my best self before drawing near. I realize I am lying exactly as I was at the start, but my body has begun to believe a different story, that the night is not an enemy to fight, but a place where I can rest while being held. I start to trace back through the day, the moments I wish I could have handled differently, the words I wish I hadn't said, the silences I wish I'd broken. All of it still exists. But tonight it's not rising like a flood. It's drifting past like leaves on slow water. I don't have to chase them. I don't have to grab them. They're moving through a wider stream now, a stream that carries me too. And this stream has a name. Your nearness. Your nearness is not another thought I have to manage. It's the current underneath them all. It doesn't erase the past or guarantee tomorrow. It simply holds me here, in the present, in this bed, in this breath, and it is enough. There's a humility in this that I didn't expect. I always imagined prayer at night as a performance. The right words, the right tone, the right list of confessions and gratitude. But lying here with my scattered mind, I see how little you needed from me to draw near. Not a speech, not a plan, just permission, just a quiet invitation, whispered between thoughts. And when I offered even that small space, you filled it without fanfare. You became closer than my self-talk, closer than my internal critic, closer than my endless rehearsals of what if. I can feel you even now, in the rhythm of my breathing, in the loosening of my chest, in the slight ache of tears that never fully formed. It's not a grand spiritual experience. It's a subtle shift of gravity, my soul leaning into yours. As I feel sleep approaching, I let this awareness deepen. I picture you, not at the far edge of my bed, but woven through the very air I'm breathing. I picture my thoughts as small birds settling into a tree at dusk, still fluttering, but slowly tucking their heads beneath their wings. I picture your hand resting, not to silence them by force, but to steady the branch so they can finally rest. And then I stop picturing. I simply let myself be. Because presence isn't a picture to hold. It's a reality to sink into, and you are already here. Stay close, God, even as I cross from waking into sleep. Be the quiet anchor at the center of my dreams. Be the memory of safety that greets me when my eyes open again. Let this nearness be more than a moment. Let it be a seed planted in me tonight, growing into a habit of heart. Let it teach me tomorrow, when the noise returns in daylight, that I don't have to go far to find you. That even in the busiest hours, even in the loudest crowds, I can still turn inward and discover you waiting, closer than my thoughts, closer than my breath. So here, at the edge of another day, I end with no grand conclusion, only this quiet truth. I am not alone in my mind. I am not alone in my room. I am not alone in this night. You are here. You have been here. You will be here. Closer than the questions, closer than the fears, closer than the thoughts themselves. And that nearness is enough to carry me into rest. The hour feels weightless now. There's still darkness outside, still the quiet hum of the city far away, still the whisper of my own breath in the room, but inside me something has shifted from desperation to surrender. My thoughts, though they still flicker, no longer sit on my chest like a weight. They pass through like faint currents of air. I sense how your closeness is not a thin layer over my noise, but a depth beneath it. It isn't an antidote, it's a ground. I find myself resting in a paradox. The noise continues, but it no longer owns me. The ache continues, but it no longer defines me. The mind still moves, but it moves inside your stillness. And this is the quiet miracle of the night. Not that everything has stopped, but that I have discovered the someone who holds everything without letting it crush me. Lying here, I realize how often I've mistaken intimacy with you for escape. I wanted you to pull me out of myself, away from my thoughts, to leave the whole messy room behind. But what you offer is deeper, not escape, but indwelling. You come inside the room, sit on the floor with me, and the room becomes holy ground. You don't make my mind disappear. You make it a place where I can breathe again. That is why you're closer than my thoughts, not because you're outside them, but because you're at their core, a steady center on which they orbit. It's like a spiral I can finally step back from, seeing not just its motion, but its center. And in that center, you are patient, unhurried, unchained. I think of the stories where you spoke into storms. The wind didn't always stop at once. Sometimes it slowed, sometimes it still rolled across the water. But the people in the boat began to believe they were not about to drown. That's what your nearness does here, in this bed. It doesn't switch off my humanity, it steadies it. It gives my nervous system permission to soften, my spirit permission to trust, my mind permission to let go of the steering wheel. It reminds me that even when I am caught in loops of worry, those loops are still within a larger love, a love that has been present since before I learned to name my fears. So I keep breathing, slow and deliberate, not to control, but to open. With each breath, I imagine drawing your nearness deeper into the hidden places, the silent griefs, the quiet hopes, the questions I'm too tired to ask. With each exhale, I imagine letting go of the need to manage the outcome of every thought. They can rise and fall like tide water. You remain. You remain when I am awake and when I sleep, when my mind is sharp and when it frays, when I believe easily and when I struggle. You remain closer than the noise, closer than the ache, closer than the pulse of my own fears. Stay like this, God. Stay not as a flash, but as a slow-burning presence that I carry into tomorrow. Let this nearness rewire something in me so that when daylight comes and my head fills again with plans and demands, there is still a quiet center, still a remembered closeness. Let me walk out of this night not emptied, but rooted. Let me meet the coming day with the memory of being held so that the voices of anxiety don't become my only compass. Let your closeness be the ground under my first step, the low hum under my first conversation, the steady hand under my first decision. And as the last of my energy drifts towards sleep, let this truth sink even deeper, that I do not have to earn this nearness. It isn't a prize for perfect faith. It's the nature of who you are, Emmanuel, God with me. You are not visiting my thoughts tonight. You are inhabiting them, redeeming them, shaping even their restless edges into something that can be held. You are closer than my thoughts, and therefore I am never truly lost within them. I am held in a presence deeper than their noise, steadier than their tide. That is enough for this night, enough for this life, enough for the next breath. The night has reached its quietest hour now. Even the street outside seems to have fallen asleep. I can feel how the air has cooled and settled, as if the world itself is exhaling, and I sense how this stillness is not empty but full of the weight of your presence that has been gathering around me through these hours. My thoughts still move, but now they move like a slow tide. They are no longer a wall pressing in. They are a low murmur at the edge of a vast sea, and in that sea, you are everywhere. Not a point of light I have to chase, but an expanse that carries me. My mind is still human, still fragile, still quick to wander, but it has begun to rest inside something wider. The panic has softened into something closer to prayer. The fragments of memory, worry, and longing are still here, but now they float instead of claw. I can feel the difference in my body. The ache in my shoulders has eased. My breath is no longer an effort, but a rhythm. There is no grand revelation, only the quiet recognition that you've been here all along, not at the edge of my life, but woven through it. That when I reach for you in desperation, I'm not summoning someone far away. I'm turning toward the one who has already leaned in. This is the heart of the mystery for me tonight. Your nearness isn't a prize for perfect prayers. It's a constant reality waiting for my awareness. My awareness flickers, but your presence does not. That is what steadies me. So I begin to let go even of my images and words. I don't have to picture you in a certain way. I don't have to hold on to a phrase like a charm. I can simply rest because the truth of your closeness does not depend on my focus. It's like gravity. It just is. And in this awareness, I find myself less interested in solving my mind and more interested in simply being with you inside it. I let the questions I can't answer drift to the edges. I let the ache that can't be healed tonight stay where it is. I let your presence become not a temporary comfort but a home big enough for my thoughts to wander and return without ever leaving your embrace. Stay here, God, in the small hours when even my own strength is nearly gone. Be the warmth in the room when my body turns in sleep. Be the anchor in my dreams when my mind keeps moving. Let your nearness be the first and last environment of this night, the quiet wait beneath the restless tide. Let me wake tomorrow with this closeness still inside me, not as a fragile memory but as a foundation. Let it shape how I meet the day, how I walk into noise and light and tasks, so that I carry a little of this night's steady hush into every conversation and decision. I end this part of the night with no plea, only gratitude, that even when my thoughts were wild, you came closer, that even when I doubted you'd stay, you stayed, that even when I couldn't quiet my mind, your presence became the still point within it, and that tonight, as I slip towards sleep, I am not defined by the noise, but held by the nearness, closer than my thoughts, closer than my breath, closer than my fears, closer than I dared to hope. The night has thinned into that pale, pre-dawn hour when everything feels suspended, not quite night anymore, but not yet morning. It's the time when dreams hover close to waking and the world holds its breath before light breaks. My body is still lying where it has been for hours, but the inside of me feels different, as if something has settled in the very marrow. All through these nights, I've been reaching, and somewhere between the reaching and the breathing I've discovered what I was reaching for, not a solution, not a sudden silence, but a presence, a nearness that doesn't fade when I drift, that doesn't scold when my mind spins again, that simply stays. And this staying is what my whole soul has been thirsting for. I notice how the thoughts still appear, a stray worry about tomorrow, a flicker of regret about yesterday, but they no longer arrive like invaders. They pass like clouds across a sky that has become vast and open. The sky is your nearness. The clouds can form and dissolve, but they cannot touch the expanse beneath them. That is the difference now. I am no longer trying to push the thoughts away. I am letting them exist inside a presence larger than they are. And in that larger presence, I feel small but safe, fragile but held, restless but no longer alone. It's a strange kind of freedom, not the absence of my mind's movement, but the discovery that my mind's movement is not stronger than your stillness. I think of how often I've tried to control myself into peace. Tonight has been a slow unlearning of that. Peace didn't come from control. It came from closeness. It came from loosening my grip, enough to feel the ground that was already under me. It came from discovering that prayer is not a speech, but a leaning. It's a posture of turning my face, even if my hands are empty, toward the one who is already here. And in this leaning I realize something gentle. I don't have to keep earning this. Your nearness is not a guest I must entertain. It's the air I've always been breathing without knowing. So, as dawn begins to soften the edges of the room, I let my spirit whisper one more time, stay. Not because I'm afraid you'll leave, but because saying it anchors me. Stay closer than my thoughts as morning rises. Stay in the space between my heartbeats when the day begins to demand my attention. Stay in my conversations, in my decisions, in my pauses. Let the memory of this night, this slow quieting, this deepening closeness become a compass for the hours ahead. When noise returns, let me remember the sky. When fear tries to speak, let me remember the steady hand on the back of my neck. When I start to spiral, let me remember I am spiraling inside a love that does not end. I don't close this prayer like a book. I let it remain open. I let it flow with me from night into day. I let your nearness be the threshold I cross as the light comes. And even if my mind wakes up again into its usual patterns, I trust that something has shifted, a seed planted, a quiet gravity established, a memory of being held that my soul can return to, closer than my thoughts, closer than my fears, closer than my breath. This is where I end the night, not fixed but found, not silent but steadied, not empty but accompanied. And in this companionship, I finally rest. The first faint threads of light have begun to show themselves, not yet a sunrise, but the quiet gray that comes before color. It is in this fragile hour, neither night nor day, that I feel most aware of what has been happening all along. You have not been a visitor moving in and out of my sleeplessness. You have been the atmosphere holding me. All the parts of me that get jagged, scattered, and too loud are still present, but their sharpness has softened inside your nearness. They are no longer shards. They are simply pieces of a story being held. My breathing is slow now, almost like the sea rolling in and out, and in that rhythm I can sense a deeper rhythm under mine. Not my words, not my attempts to pray correctly, just your quiet, steady presence, deeper than the noise and closer than the swirl of my mind. I find myself thinking about how many nights have been like this without me even naming them. Nights when I stared at the ceiling, rehearsing mistakes, fearing what lay ahead, believing I had to handle it all before morning. And now, with your presence braided into my awareness, I can see it differently. The crowd of my thoughts was never a barrier to you. My anxious rehearsals were never too messy for you. Even when I didn't recognize it, you were already walking through the hallways of my mind, sitting on the edge of the bed, waiting for me to notice. I don't feel ashamed of my noise anymore. I feel grateful for the way it led me to reach out, because in reaching I discovered not a distant deity, but a nearness, so intimate it reshapes my sense of self. The room itself feels different now. The walls are the same. The air is the same. The city outside is still asleep, but the space inside me has widened. My thoughts, still moving, now move like birds gliding instead of beating their wings. The questions that once felt like storms are now like rain on a roof. And I realize this is what I've been longing for. Not an emptied mind, but a safe place for my mind to rest. Not the absence of thought, but the presence of a love big enough for every thought. I don't have to strain to hold on to this. It's holding me. So as the day edges closer, I whisper again, stay. Not as a demand, but as an agreement with reality. Stay closer than my thoughts when they race again. Stay closer than my fears when they rise. Stay closer than my self-doubt when it begins its old songs. Let this nearness, born in the dark, become the quiet center of my daylight. Let me walk into the noise of life carrying a little of this hush inside, a little of this steadiness in my bones. Let it change the way I speak, the way I breathe, the way I see the people around me. Let it teach me that the same presence that filled this room fills the crowded streets, the busy hours, the conversations where I feel small. I don't want to close this prayer like a door. I want to walk out of it as into a larger room, a room where you are not a visitor, but the very air, a room where my mind can move and still be held, a room where night and day meet inside your presence. I leave these words here on the threshold of morning, not as a conclusion, but as a continuation. You are here. You have been here. You will be here, closer than my thoughts, closer than my fears, closer than my breath. And that is enough to rise, enough to breathe, enough to begin again. The world is starting to wake now. The gray at the window has turned to a faint blue, and somewhere a bird is trying its first song. It's not loud yet, but it's enough to remind me that time moves forward whether or not I'm ready. And here I am, still under the same blanket, but not in the same place I was when this night began. All the hours of circling thoughts, all the reaching and whispering, have settled into a quiet awareness. You are not just a comfort for the dark. You are the ground I wake on. Your nearness doesn't vanish with the light. It stretches into the day like the slow tide that never retreats too far. I can feel a different kind of tiredness now, not the frantic exhaustion of fighting my mind, but the gentle weariness of having been held. My chest feels open instead of tight. My jaw is, even my thoughts, still present, are no longer spinning so hard. They're moving at the pace of a stream instead of a storm. And in that stream, I sense the same steady current that has been carrying me all night. It's not a feeling I have to clutch. It's a reality I can lean on. You are closer than my thoughts, and so I don't have to fear their return. When they race again, they will still be inside you. When they scatter again, they will still be within your holding. This is the part of the night I used to dread, the edge of morning, when anxiety often rises again as daylight approaches. But now, I see it differently. This is the threshold where I can practice carrying what I've discovered, not by gripping it, but by remembering that the quiet presence I felt in the dark is not tied to darkness, remembering that my worth does not depend on perfect calm, remembering that prayer is not a performance, but a posture, remembering that you have already gone ahead into the day I'm about to step into. So, as I lie here in the thin blue light, I ask one more time, let this closeness become part of me. Let it sink into my muscles, my reactions, my words. Let it shape how I greet people, how I face tasks, how I respond when the noise of the world comes rushing back. Let it become a hidden gravity that keeps me from spinning out. Let me begin the day knowing that my mind, however busy, is not a wilderness beyond your reach. It is a landscape you already walk. I don't need every thought to be still. I don't need every plan to be clear. I just need to keep leaning into the reality that has held me through the night, that you are nearer than the noise, nearer than the breath I'm taking right now, nearer than my own ability to describe it. And from that nearness, courage grows without me forcing it. Peace rises without me manufacturing it. The morning becomes less a cliff to climb and more a door I can walk through. So I open my eyes a little wider and let the light touch my face. I take one more slow breath and I whisper, not as a plea but as a recognition of what already is. You are here. You are closer than my thoughts. You are closer than my fears. You are closer than my breath. And with that truth inside me, I can. The light has fully arrived now. Not just that faint suggestion at the edges, but real, golden morning light stretching across the wall, touching the folds of the blanket, landing softly on my skin. And still, even in this brightness, even with the pull of the day ahead beginning to rise like a tide beneath me, I'm aware of the nearness I met in the dark. It hasn't faded. It hasn't dissolved like fog in the sun. If anything, it has grown more quiet, more rooted, like something that's chosen to stay and wait. Not just for the next night, but for the hours in between. You are still here. You haven't slipped away now that the room is filled with light and sound. Your nearness wasn't a nighttime comfort. It was a revelation, one that carries weight even now, as my thoughts begin to gather again, lining up like birds on a wire, already chirping about what needs to be done, what hasn't been fixed, what could still go wrong. But I see them differently now. I don't feel swallowed by them. I don't mistake them for the whole truth. Because you've taught me, not with words, but with presence, that I don't have to get rid of my thoughts to find you. You are here, even when they multiply, even when I spiral, even when I wake up already tangled inside them. You are not afraid of the noise. You don't measure my closeness to you by how still my mind is. You are simply here, patient, gentle, and so now, as I sit in this slow, unfolding morning, I let the thoughts be here too. But not at the center. That place belongs to you. I notice something else. The permission to begin gently, not with pressure, not with the demand to perform or produce or prove anything, but with the quiet courage of one who has been held. I can feel how the night shaped me, not by fixing anything, not by answering all the questions I carried, but by showing me what kind of love surrounds me. A love that didn't need me to stop thinking in order to be near, a love that came closer than every sentence I tried to silence, a love that doesn't wait outside the chaos, but steps into it without hesitation and stays until the quiet comes, or even if it doesn't come. This is the kind of morning I want to learn to carry with me, one that starts not with striving, but with receiving, one that remembers what it felt like to be accompanied through every restless hour, one that trusts the same presence in the morning noise that steadied me in the midnight storm. I don't want to rush past this. I don't want to forget too quickly how it felt to be found not in the silence after the storm, but in the storm itself. I want to let this tenderness be the anchor for today. I want to wake into this awareness again and again, not just in bed, not just as prayer, but in traffic, in meetings, in moments of uncertainty. To know that I am never outside your reach, never too complicated for your closeness, never too noisy in mind or heart to be met right where I am. So even as I rise, even as my feet touch the floor and the tasks begin to swirl, I carry this one unshakable truth. You are not beside me like a shadow that follows. You are within me, closer than my thoughts, more faithful than my feelings, more solid than my fears. The day might pull me in many directions, but I will not lose this center. I will not lose this closeness, because it doesn't come from me. It comes from you, and you are not leaving. And if, later today, I forget, if my thoughts grow loud again, if I feel overwhelmed or ashamed or too far gone, let this night return to me. Let the memory of this holy hush rise in my chest like a breath. Let me turn, even in a crowded room, even in a noisy mind, and whisper again, be near, and know that you already are. Now the day stands fully awake outside my window. Light pours in without asking permission, and the world begins to move with all its sounds and schedules. But inside me, there is still a remnant of the night's hush, a trace of what we built together in the dark, a soft gravity holding me steady while everything else speeds up. The same thoughts that chased me at midnight are waiting for me here at morning's edge, the lists, the worries, the unspoken questions. They try to climb back into the center, but they don't fit the way they used to, because the center has changed. The center is now a presence, the center is now you, and in that center there is a spaciousness I didn't have yesterday. I rise slowly, letting the blanket slip from my shoulders, feeling the cool air on my skin. The movement feels like a small ritual, not a performance, just a way of acknowledging the shift from night to day. My mind tries to resume its old habits, rehearsing conversations, tallying unfinished tasks. But there's a new rhythm underneath. It's the same rhythm that carried me through the restless hours. Your closeness, not as a mood I have to conjure, but as a reality I can return to. My breathing, my thinking, my being, all of it can lean against something steadier than my own control. This is what I didn't know I was praying for when I began the night. Not a flawless silence, but a lived memory of being held. A closeness that would travel with me into daylight. A trust that doesn't vanish when I open my eyes and see the world again. I don't expect the day to be easy. I don't expect my mind to stay perfectly still. But I do expect this, that the same presence that sat with me in the dark will walk with me into the noise, that you will be closer than my thoughts, even in a crowded room, even in a meeting, even when my phone fills with notifications and my plans start to fray, that I don't have to leave behind what we built in the night. So I stand for a moment, eyes closed, and whisper the simplest prayer. Stay. Stay not just in the quiet spaces, but in the busy ones. Stay not as a whisper I hear only when I'm still, but as a pulse I feel while I'm moving. Stay not as an idea, but as an atmosphere. Let this night's nearness become my morning's posture. Let it thread itself through my words, my glances, my decisions. Let it make me a little more gentle with others, a little more patient with myself. Let it give me courage when I feel small and clarity when I feel scattered. I don't end this part of the prayer with a full stop. I carry it like an unfinished sentence into the hours ahead, because prayer, I'm learning, isn't something that happens only in the dark or on my knees. It's the continual leaning of my mind and heart toward the one who is already here, and you are already here, closer than my first thought of the day, closer than the breath I'm drawing right now, closer than the weight I'll pick up as soon as I walk out the door. This is enough for me to begin. Not the absence of noise, but the presence of love. Not a blank mind, but a held one. Not a perfect prayer, but a living awareness. And as I step into the light, I do so with a quiet certainty. The closeness I found in the night will not leave me at the threshold of morning. It will go with me, grow with me, breathe with me. You are closer than my thoughts. And that is how I will walk through this day. The city is fully alive now. I can hear it beyond the window. A car door closing, a dog barking, someone's footsteps on the pavement, the echo of a voice calling to another across the street. The day is no longer waiting at the threshold. It's moving, breathing, asking me to join it. Yet I stand here in this room a little longer, feeling how the night's slow work has changed something inside me. My thoughts have not vanished. They line up like small tasks on the edge of my vision, but they're no longer my center. The center has become a stillness that can travel, a stillness I didn't earn, a stillness born from your closeness. I begin to see how this nearness can be more than a nighttime refuge. It can become a practice. I can choose to return to it again and again, in the middle of noise, in the middle of movement, in the middle of my mind's sudden storm. I don't have to wait until I'm undone to reach for it. I can build my day around it. A pause in traffic, a breath before speaking, a glance out a window, a whispered name, yours. Each of these can be a doorway back into the same nearness that held me at 3 a.m. This is not about clutching a feeling. It's about trusting a reality. The reality that you are not at the edges of my life, but at its heart, closer than thought, closer than breath. The thought of walking into the day no longer feels like stepping into a battle I must win. It feels like walking out of a room where I have been held into a larger room where you are already waiting. My inner world still moves, but it's like a river that's found its bedrock. The water can swirl without losing its direction. And when I imagine the hours ahead, conversations, responsibilities, uncertainties, I can already sense a different posture in me, not bracing, but not frantic, but anchored. This isn't my own strength. It's the echo of your nearness, shaping me from the inside out. So I whisper again, not as a plea, but as a rhythm, stay. Stay in my first coffee, in my first words to another person, in the first moments when the phone lights up with messages. Stay in the long afternoon when my energy dips and my mind begins to wander. Stay in the evening when the day's noise tries to settle back into my chest. Stay closer than my thoughts, not because I am perfect at remembering you, but because you are perfect at remaining. Let this nearness become muscle memory. Let it reteach my nervous system what safety feels like. Let it plant a seed of peace in me that grows stronger than the noise. And if I lose sight of it, if the day overwhelms me, if the crowd in my mind returns louder than ever, let the memory of this night rise again, like a tide, bringing me back to the truth we have been building in the dark, that I am not alone inside my own head, that there is a love larger than my spirals, that there is a presence patient enough to sit with me in the storm until I feel my own pulse again, that I don't have to escape my thoughts to find you. You are already here. You are already holding me. This is how I want to move through the day, not as someone who finally tamed the noise, but as someone learning to live inside a greater quiet, not as someone who earned nearness, but as someone who accepted it, not as someone who memorized a prayer, but as someone whose life has become one. And as I step forward now, I do so carrying this one unshakable truth like a hidden flame. You are closer than my thoughts, and that is enough to begin again. There is something tender about walking into the day with this awareness still intact, not as a sharp edge, not as an emotional high, but as a quiet thread woven into the fabric of everything. I feel it now as I move through the simplest gestures, pouring water into a glass, noticing the way sunlight touches the floor, hearing the rustle of the wind against the window. These are not remarkable things, but I am meeting them differently, not because the world has changed, but because I have. Because something in me has learned how to stay rooted even as the surface moves, and that rootedness has a name. It's not strength, it's not certainty, it's not clarity, it's nearness. I used to believe that if my thoughts were out of control, you would be distant, that you'd wait until I was ready, until I was calm, until I was good. But the truth has undone that belief, gently but completely. Because now I've seen what you're like in the middle of the mess. I've seen you step into the room when it was full of noise, full of worry, full of contradiction, and not flinch. You didn't ask me to silence myself. You didn't demand that I untangle everything. You just came closer, closer than my explanations, closer than my mental rehearsals, closer than my guilt, closer than the storm. You sat with me when I didn't even know how to ask, and that changed everything. So now, as the rhythms of the day begin to rise, I don't want to move as if I'm alone. I don't want to forget what it felt like to be met in the deep end of my own thoughts and not be left there. I don't want to leave behind the softness I found in the dark. I want to carry it like a secret strength, not loud, not proud, but real. The kind of strength that knows it's okay to pause before speaking, to breathe before reacting, to ask before assuming, to rest, even in the middle of movement. That kind of strength only comes from nearness, and nearness only becomes strength when it's not something I visit but something I live from. Let this be where I live from. Let this closeness be the ground beneath every decision I make today. Let it slow me when I feel myself rushing toward anxiety. Let it remind me that I don't need to have all the answers in order to be faithful. Let it soften my voice when I speak to others. Let it give me permission to not know and to still be safe. Let it protect me from the lie that busyness is worth more than presence. Let it shape even the unseen moments, the ones no one claps for, the dishwashing, the email replying, the silence between conversations. Let those places become sanctuaries, because you are in them. Because you are already closer than the thoughts that try to pull me out of them. And if I feel myself drifting, if I forget, if I get caught in the wave again, let returning be simple. Let it be as easy as closing my eyes for a moment and whispering, "You're here." Let that be enough to begin again. Over and over, if I need to. Let returning not feel like failure, but like breathing. Let every return be a remembering that you were never far, that you never left, that even when I couldn't sense you, you were nearer than the thoughts I was drowning in. This is the kind of day I want to live. Not one where everything is perfect, but one where I don't have to walk a single moment without nearness, where I don't have to perform peace in order to be held by it, where I don't have to win silence in order to find stillness, where even the spinning of my mind becomes a place of prayer, because you have taught me how to meet you there, not later, not when it's over, not when I've figured it out, but now. Now, as I gather my things, now, as I write the message I've been putting off, now, as I step out into the ordinary, unpredictable, beautiful mess of another day, you are here. You are closer than my thoughts, and that is enough. It has always been enough. It will still be enough by the time the sun sets. And when the night returns again, I'll remember how to find you, not by escaping my thoughts, but by welcoming you into them, just like now, just like always. It's later now. The day has gathered its weight. The light is no longer soft and golden. It's sharper, brighter, fuller. The quiet stillness of morning has given way to motion, conversations, alerts, decisions, small complications that I couldn't have predicted when I was still lying in bed, tracing your nearness in the dark. The world has tilted forward again, as it always does. And so has my mind. The thoughts are louder now, more demanding. Lists have grown longer. Expectations have entered the room, and I can feel the edges of my peace beginning to fray. Not because you have moved, but because I am moving fast again. And yet, this is exactly why I asked you to be closer than my thoughts. Not to remove them, not to rewrite the hours, but to meet me here, in the fast, in the full, in the swirl. You are not surprised that the calm I carried from the night is flickering now. You are not surprised that I need to return again and again to the center. I think that's the real shape of spiritual life, not one long, uninterrupted state of serenity, but thousands of small returns to what's real. And you are real. Realer than the noise, realer than my hurry, realer than the emotions that spike without warning. You are the undercurrent I can fall back into, not once, but continually. So I pause again, not because I have time to pause, but because I need to. I pause mid-task, mid-thought, mid-scroll, mid-sentence, and I remember the hush of the night, the way it wrapped around me like something sacred. I remember the steady breath, the loosening of my chest, the truth that I don't have to finish sorting everything out in order to feel safe. I remember the gift I was given, not perfect silence, but unshakable presence. I breathe in that presence again now, even if it only takes a second, even if I'm standing in a hallway, or sitting in traffic, or trying to answer too many things at once. I reach for you, not to escape this moment, but to be anchored in it, not to reject my mind, but to re-inhabit it with you inside it. And when I do, something shifts. Not everything, not the loudness, not the pressure, but something. My body relaxes by 1 degree. My breath slows just slightly. The swirl continues, but I'm not caught in the center of it. I found the deeper center again, the one that doesn't move when everything else does, the one that doesn't need a reason to be faithful, the one that waits quietly until I come home. You are the reason I can stay gentle while the day hardens around me. You are the reason I can respond instead of react. You are the reason I can look my fear in the face and say, "You're here, but you don't get to decide who I am," because who I am is not defined by what I think or feel or fear, but by the one who draws nearer than it all. Let this be my rhythm today, the rhythm of returning, not just when I'm desperate, but when I'm bored. Not just when I'm anxious, but when I'm distracted. Not just when I'm unraveling, but when I'm tempted to perform. Let me learn to carry this nearness the way a musician carries a melody, always in the background, always ready to be brought forward again. Let it be the tone under everything I say, the quiet I can fall back into without apology, the warmth I bring into every room. And when the day stretches long, when I feel myself nearing the edges of what I can hold, remind me I am not holding this alone. I never was. Remind me that you are still here, not behind me, not above me, not even beside me, but deeper, within, holding the parts of me I don't know how to hold yet, breathing with me when I forget how to breathe, seeing me with tenderness when I'm too tired to offer it to myself. So I continue forward, not fearless, not perfect, not fully composed, but held. I let this hour be a continuation of the night's quiet miracle, that the mind does not have to be silent for the soul to be at peace, that the world does not have to slow down for love to remain close, that I do not have to finish untangling every thread before I say again, "You are here. You are closer than my thoughts." And that will be enough, even now, especially now. Afternoon arrives like a weight across the shoulders. The early energy of the day has burned off, leaving a kind of dull heaviness in its place. My phone is full of unread messages. The list of tasks has grown instead of shrunk, And the small kindness I meant to offer someone this morning slipped through my fingers before I could reach them. All of it swirls in the back of my mind, looking for a place to land. And I feel the old reflex rising to tighten, to brace, to try to think my way out of it. But then, almost automatically now, another instinct stirs. Pause, breathe, remember. Because I've been practicing this all day and through the night before, and the habit is starting to find me before I even reach for it. The habit of leaning inward instead of outward. The habit of returning to the one who is already closer than the noise. I close my eyes for a heartbeat in the middle of a crowded moment. The chatter of my mind doesn't stop, but it softens around the edges. In that heartbeat, I feel it again. The steady ground under the moving water. The nearness that doesn't depend on silence. The presence that is not embarrassed by my distraction, not impatient with my hurry, the one who simply stays. It's almost like a second pulse inside my body. It isn't dramatic. It isn't a sudden wave of emotion. It's a quiet gravity, a centering weight, an anchor that catches before I drift too far. And just feeling it is enough to change the texture of the moment. Not everything changes. The tasks still wait. The messages still need replies. But something inside me is no longer frayed. I can move from a deeper place again. I begin to see how this nearness isn't just a refuge, but a rhythm, like breathing. Inhale, step into the noise. Exhale, remember the closeness. Inhale, take up the task. Exhale, lean back into the presence that carries me. Over and over, without shame for forgetting, without guilt for needing to return. Because this is not a trick I'm trying to master. It's a relationship, and relationships are built on returning, on showing up again, on choosing to believe that someone is still there, even when my mind has wandered. So here, in the middle of my day's wait, I whisper again what I've been whispering since last night. Stay. Stay closer than my thoughts while I write the email. Stay closer than my fears while I speak what needs to be said. Stay closer than my fatigue while I finish what I promised to do. Let this closeness not be something I visit, but the place I live from. Let it shape the tone of my voice, the pace of my steps, the way I look at the people around me. Let it soften the hard corners I tend to grow when I'm tired. Let it remind me that I am not a machine. I am a soul being held. And if I lose the thread, as I surely will, let the thread find me. Let this nearness be so woven into me that even my forgetting leads me back. Let the memory of the night, the breath of the morning, the pauses of this day accumulate into something larger than effort, into a life shaped by closeness, into a heart that knows how to be held even when its thoughts are loud. I don't need to be flawless at this. I don't need to be finished. I just need to keep returning. And in every return I discover the same truth. You are not disappointed. You are not surprised. You are already here, closer than my thoughts, closer than my breath, closer than my ability to name it. And even here, at the midpoint of a heavy day, that is enough. It is always enough. There's a hush that settles in the afternoon's last stretch. Not silence, not peace, exactly, but a pause that follows effort. The light outside begins to shift, softening at the edges, and everything seems to move a little slower. My body is tired now in a way it wasn't this morning. My thoughts too, not quiet, but dulled at the corners. I can feel the residue of the day clinging to me. The moments I wish had gone differently, the tension I didn't fully release, the emotions I swallowed to make it through what needed doing, and underneath it all, a steady ache, not loud, but persistent. That ache that comes when the soul is stretched thin, when I've moved too long from task to task without fully arriving in myself. It's in this quiet ache that I reach for you again, not because you left, but because I forgot how near you were. You are here in the tension I'm still carrying in my shoulders. You are here in a sharp thought that won't leave. You're here in the list that didn't get finished. You're here in the sigh I didn't mean to let out when I thought no one was listening. You're here in the faint guilt over what I didn't say, and in the grace that whispers, you're still learning. You're here in the part of me that wants to retreat. You're here in the part of me that wants to press on. You're not choosing between the best version of me and the broken one. You're drawing close to the whole. So I give you what I have. Again, I give you my afternoon thoughts. Some scattered, some sharp. I give you the things I did well and the places I fumbled. I give you the part of me that's trying to make sense of everything before the sun goes down, as if resolution could save me. I give you the weight of my unfinishedness, not so you can fix it, but so I don't have to hold it alone. Because I'm learning that this is what nearness really means. Not that you instantly quiet the noise, but that you willingly enter it, that you sit with me inside the cloud of confusion, that you make space inside the whirlwind, not by ending it, but by not abandoning me in it. And it's this sharedness, this willingness, that softens me, that saves me from hardening into hurry or closing into shame, that reminds me that no matter how loud the thoughts get, they're not louder than you. And here in the long quiet of late afternoon, I begin to feel a different kind of peace. Not the kind that requires everything to be solved, but the kind that can live in the middle of not knowing, not closure, but companionship, not resolution, but presence. You are closer than my thoughts, which means I don't have to get rid of them to rest in you. I just have to remember you're already beneath them, already here. So I breathe again, and I don't try to push the thoughts away. I just let them move around me like wind in tall grass, knowing I'm rooted deeper. I let them pass without chasing them. I let them rise without fearing them. I let myself be here, tired, unsure, tender, and I let you be here too. I don't ask you to fix the way my mind feels right now. I only ask that you remain close enough that I don't feel buried inside it. You are the silence beneath the spinning. You are the kindness in the corners of the day. You are the mercy I forget to ask for. You are the one constant thread that doesn't snap when I pull too hard on it. You are what's true when nothing else feels settled. You are what steadies me when I don't know how to be steady. You are the closeness that sees my scattered thoughts and says, I'm still here. So as the day starts to fold into evening, I lean again into that whisper. Not because I've mastered it, but because I need it now more than ever. Stay. Stay closer than the weariness. Stay closer than the weight. Stay closer than the weirs of myself I'm trying to fix. Let me feel your breath inside my breath. Let me walk the last stretch of this day with my hands a little more open, my shoulders a little less clenched, my soul a little more aware that it is not alone. Let this hour be marked not by what I accomplish, but by how deeply I remember that you are still here, that you are closer than my thought.